welcome to another edition of Inside the Pit Pit. My name is Scott Morgan, Rock the Motor City Madmouth. Have a great show lined up. We talk about the Miami Hurricanes, and we also are going to talk about Coach's favorite team, Florida State University, Rich Rodriguez. We're going to talk about the Dallas Cowboys. We're going to talk about the game you're looking forward to. And guess what? All three of my guys get a chance to speak their mind. Coach Panamago did it to perfection last week. So anytime I see something new, we're going to incorporate it. With that said, let's go to the crew real quick. Mel Farr Jr., welcome back to the big show.
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Doing great. And Travis Sherlock Holmes is back.
Hey, man, we have a week of football. I am feeling great, sir.
Yeah, me too. Although my college is mine, it's Coach Bono, who actually is claimed to fame now, is creating the group chat. I knew you had it in you.
Hey, Scott.
Among other things.
We are in it. Football season is amongst us.
Yeah, I don't have to get creative with the topics anymore. I could just go to everything and be good stuff. All right. We're going to go to, first of all, we're going to lead off with the place that Candy Emily and I were at. We were at Ben Hill Griffith Stadium on Saturday night when the Miami Hurricane blew out the Florida Gators 41-17. And I'm going to tell you, you talk about the domination that Florida succumbed to. It was unreal. Let me go over some of the numbers here. The key numbers are total offense. The U had 529 to Florida's 261, passing 385 to Florida's 122. Cam Ward threw for 26, 35, 385 yards. Can only hope 385 touchdowns, right? 3 touchdowns and 1 interception. And of course, receiving Xavier Restrepo, 7 for 112, 1 touchdown. And Miami ended up getting 5 rushers involved, and they also had 10 receivers. On the Florida side, the guy claimed to fame was Montrell Johnson, who had a 71-yard touchdown run. That was the main offense that you had with 6 rushers. The Gators had 6 receivers involved for 122. And this is only the 4th time that these two teams have played in the last 20 years. I have a feeling it'll be a while before they play again. And Florida now has lost 6 straight. So, all right, Mel, how do you size up what took place over at the Swamp?
It wasn't very good. For the Florida fans, obviously, Miami looked good. And I think college football is better when the University of Miami is good. I grew up, watching, obviously, at a time when the University of Miami was good with I think obviously the ACC is better. It'd be nice if Clemson was better, playing better than what they've been playing. It just seems like one team gets it together and everybody else is trying to figure it out. But right now, it looks like Miami is for real. They got a coach there. He's serious about recruiting. That's the whole key. You got to have the horses. If you don't have the horses, it's very, very difficult to compete. But it looks like Miami is back, and Florida is struggling. I think the Florida is a proud program from when the old ball coach was there, and then they brought in I can't think of his name right now, but the coach that was in Jacksonville. The coach that was in Jacksonville, Urban Meyer brought him in there, and that program was it was very, very difficult. I mean, they could compete with anybody, and to see them playing the way they are right now, it's disappointing. It's disappointing. I mean, I remember I had an opportunity to play the University of Florida. My senior year, we played them in the Aloha Bowl, and having an opportunity to play a team like Florida was always a big deal. And for the program to look the way they look right now, I think it's disappointing, obviously, for the fans, but it's also disappointing for the competition in college football.
Well, keep in mind the Gators have lost 6 straight, but if you think the answer is firing Billy Napier, don't think so fast about it, because the guy's got a $26 million buyout, and he's going to have a big buyout over the next couple of years. So getting rid of it, the only way he gets let go is if they end up not going winless. Then a booster is going to come up and bite the bullet and go ahead and do it. But I said I was going to take a more low-key approach, except for this topic. But I'm going to go ahead and let Travis Holmes pick me up here and tell me your thoughts about what took place on Saturday night at the Swamp.
So that's funny, because I actually disagree as far as Billy Napier is concerned. I think he's out of the door. I think he's out of the door probably over the next month. Like, that's my personal opinion. That's not based on anything I've seen or heard. That's just, I truly believe that Florida was already not looking great last season. That many thought probably should have been gone, already. And it's just things because they had so much instability as far as their executive staff at the university already. And that gave him a little bit more leeway than most other coaches probably would have had, and more than he deserves. So with this Florida Gators team losing Ricky Pearsall to the NFL, they don't really have any vertical threats, and they were already a bad vertical last season. They were 92nd in the nation on passes that travel 20 or more yards. And then they lose Ricky Pearsall to the 49ers, who, knock on wood, I mean, he just got, shot in the chest, it's just a crazy story there in and of itself. And now, next game against University of Miami, they don't complete one pass over 20 yards. When you're a team who can't pass more than 20 yards, and they can just play you in the most aggressive form of football ever, and the other team is passing up and down the field, more than 300 yards, that's the ball game. Like, we don't even have to get into the rushing game and defense and everything else, man. So that is it. And frankly, yeah, Billy Napier, I don't know how you come back from that. Like, it's only one game, but I don't know how you come back from that with the rest of the baggage that he already has looming over him from last season. So I personally think he's out of the door. And 20 million or not 20 million, it ain't my money. I think somebody will pay it.
All right. Well, you got a fellow UCF Knight on there, so his name is D. Lowe's. And they obviously beat the daylights out of New Hampshire. I believe New Hampshire, their nickname is a Wildcats, but they put a 50 spot on them.
I mean, it was a very unfortunate game that I was not ecstatic about because, we only won by like 50, and it needed to be a more impressive 50-plus point win. So, yeah, I mean, but yeah, we'll take that. The real Florida team. Yes, we'll take that.
Give me a break. Seriously, but at least it's a subdued seriously this time. Now, D'Lo, do I cover USF versus Bethune-Cookman? No, I was at the Florida-Miami game. Seriously? But I got to keep my seriousness low so I have a voice to get through the day. I promised Travis and the rest of my group, we need you here. We need your voice, but you just can't scream like you used to anymore. You got to go out there and just sandbag this thing. Okay, now we have, don't worry, everyone, Ricky Boo 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 is fine. Just another day in paradise. Yeah, I guess he's talking about Ricky Pearsall. All right, Coach. Yeah. You got the last word on it. And now after Coach talks about the Gators, Candy's going to have a little surprise for you, Coach.
All right. Well, I kind of like the kinder, gentler Scott. I think it's a nice change up, Scott. I'm with Travis. I think the writing's on the wall for Billy Napier. And this Miami game really highlights that, because look at both of those schools changed coaches in the same year. So Mario Cristobal has been on the job the exact same time that Billy Napier has. Actually, like 2 weeks less, if you want to get technical. And again, you hate to judge anything off of one game. But in this game, Florida was clearly outclassed, and they look like there are two programs that are moving in opposite directions. The thing that and look, I'm married into the Gator family, right? It's another reason for me to not root for Florida State. But here's what I know about Florida. I mean, they have very, very high expectations, right, and they have very, very little patience. They have hired and fired a ton of coaches, right? Because between the ones that, that Mel mentioned, which was, Urban Meyer and Coach Spurrier, you don't forget they had Bill Muschamp in there. Ron Zook had a turn at that job. Jim McElwain had a turn at that job. Dan Mullen had a turn at that job, which I think, to me, it was a mistake, giving up on him that soon. He only went to New Year's Day bowls the first 3 years he was on the job. But that $26 million, you could double that. They have deep pockets at Florida. They have deep, deep pockets. And if things don't turn around quickly, they won't hesitate to pull the trigger. Now, you look at their schedule coming up here. They get a reprieve this week. They got Samford, right? But then they've got Texas A&M, who was respectable looking in a loss to Notre Dame. Mississippi State, who under Jeff Lebby, I think is going to be better. They got UCF, That's going to be that'll be interesting because again, it's in state. You never know what's going to happen. And then Tennessee, and then Kentucky, and then they have their bye before Georgia. So, they better. I think they need to. I think they need to run the table here before they go to their bye week before Georgia. They might be able to get away with one more hiccup, but certainly if you're a lifelong Gator, you expect to beat Kentucky and you expect to beat Tennessee. What did what did Spurrier always just say about the Volunteers? You can't spell citrus without UT. So. But I think I think the writing's on the wall.
Okay, let's go.
And I think they lose against Texas A&M, honestly.
Let's go to the chat room. The softer Scott has to read this stuff. Oh, well, I'll get used to it, so don't worry about it. You can always cover from the couch like I do. No chance, D-Lo's, not on that one. And, Bo, even though you're not on the show here, you're setting this one up really nice. The FSU hate is strong, as you're going to find out momentarily. On to the next one. Kenny, how versed are you guys on tight ends? What do you think? Hunter, Henry, and Luke Musgraves and sleepers. Any thoughts? I can wait. I know it's off topic. I don't know who wants to answer that one. Any of you guys know?
I don't know how to feel about Hunter Henry just yet. I'll feel between the two of them. I feel better about Luke Musgraves, but I don't know enough about Hunter, honestly. I haven't paid as much attention to him. Just what his surrounding cast looks like this season.
Okay. Another blow says, how about the UCF Knights win? Okay, you got another one there in your corner there. But boy, I'll tell you, got a lot of friends out there. Travis, good stuff. Gee, I don't know about those emojis, whatever. Hello, talk. They fix in talk, all that business. I got to be started with that. All right,
George, miss George. Hello,
Yeah.
George.
Hey,
George.
Yeah, we can't forget about George Eichhorn. South Florida Tribune needs a special segment where Travis sucks, UCF football, bring on. Josh is the all guys want. Hey, listen, you know what? I should point this out. It's an interesting point how you bring that up, D-Lo. Everybody's going to have a chance to rant on their own, and I won't, okay? All I'll do is pick out a few football games. I'm staying out of the rant category because the vocal cords won't let me, and the doctors won't either. And I got a bunch of thoroughbreds as co-host, so it doesn't matter. You don't need to. I'm not changing the name Motor City Mile Mouth to my hat. That's too expensive. And no more or less than the Detroit Red Wings. They still use Hockey Town, but, they don't put it on the ice. So I have to make sure I can't change what I am. Just means I have to act differently on the air so that my throat stays exactly where it needs to go. With that said, we're going to preface Bo may not be on yet, but I got news for you. Candy, why don't you go ahead and cue it up about Coach and his rants? We're going to set it up and get used to more of these creative things, folks, because I'm going to make sure that these guys really realize the focus is on them, not me anymore. All I am is the point guard. Go ahead.
I'm going to say it more than once. Screw Florida State. I don't like them. I have personal reasons.
Okay.
But to me, they just remind me of the whiny crybaby kid. It's like.
See, I'll tell you. Now, Bo, you're probably right. I do have a Dan Marino rant in me, but the vocal cord said, no, leave it to you guys. Don't worry, Bo, when you come on next week, you get to rant with the rest of us. Coach, when you look at what we put on there, here's a guy that didn't know anything about what he's doing, and he's a quick study. How about that? We kept it right where we thought to preface that. Don't you feel proud of yourself that you've come a long way in this broadcasting thing? You're getting better at it.
It's like anything else. The more you do it, the better you get. And I'm nowhere near as good. I'm honestly got great role models and mentors on this show. I think everybody does such a great job. Travis, Mel, Bo, and yourself, Scott. I'm just trying to keep up.
You're doing great. All right, so B-Lows. All right, let's go. Scott, I know you have rant. Sure, I have a lot of rants in me, but the doctors have other ideas, let alone with therapy coming up soon. B-Lows. Don't worry, Coach. Josh and I all hate Florida State as well. Well, look at that. See, I'm telling you, Coach, these guys are, I get their regular chats all the day. You got to pass their test is what you have to do to be accepted. Well, you're doing it. I mean, it just takes a little while, but they're okay. They do a lot of good to help spread the word around these guys. I mean, in fact, I love B-Lows who said they're in fact a bunch of babies. Well, GMTA, great minds think alike. They got you right, B-Lows. Look at this spirit we have. Okay. Now, let me preface the segment. Boston College 28-13 over FSU. Bill O'Brien's debut. Boston College was 16.5-point underdogs. FSU is now out of the top 25. O'Brien did a nice job at Penn State when he had to clean up that mess of Joe Paterno and Jerry Sandusky. FSU has lost 3 straight. Well, let's go ahead. You know what? We'll start off with Mr. Rant himself, okay, Coach Bono. But before you do that, Bilo says I was accepted to FSU, but there was 0% chance I was going there. Look at that. I like that one. And now we got another UCF. Nice charge on. Okay. And then, of course, Delos, I was accepted at FAU. I was a baby. These guys are on a roll. All right. So you better say what you got to do before they keep rolling, Coach. Size up last night's game. Obviously, the Seminoles are 0-2 for the year, and they've lost 3 straight, which is unheard of for 2 Florida schools to go 0-9. But that's exactly where we're at. Go ahead, Coach. Take over.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think they got outperformed in every aspect. I'd say the only area where they kind of kept up or held their own was maybe in the kicking game. Boston College had a couple snafus, but I'd sum it up again. 267 yards rushing. Boston College was able to go on the road, at Florida Stadium and use Georgia Tech's blueprint and ran the ball at will. And I would say that I'm not surprised just knowing Bill O'Brien and the type of coach he is. We always talk about the Belichick disciples and how no one's been able to replicate that. But the one guy that has gone on that's come out of that system and has definitely held his own has been Bill O'Brien. I thought he did a very good job at Penn State, as you spoke about, Scott. Yeah. And I think he did a respectable job in Houston during his time there. I mean, there's a lot of people that have certainly done worse. And now at Boston College, he comes off and, really gets a signature win in week 1. And I would expect that should really, springboard them for the rest of their season. But I pointed that 267-yard rushing. I think there was also some poor decisions coaching-wise by Jay Norvell. I don't like to be critical of coaches, but I thought 2 fourth down decisions to go for it in the second half, and then not going for it, even though it was 4th and 15. But late in the game, when you're down 2 scores, it just the first one I think was from his own 40-yard line, 4th and 4. First series of the second half. I just think that was a poor mistake. Not only did they not get the first down, but they turned the ball over there, gave up an interception, and really gave up whatever momentum they had coming into the second half. And then they had another one that where they just got stuffed and then not going for it at the end of the game. So the heat's definitely turned up in Tallahassee. They need to find a way to turn it around quickly, or things could get really, really ugly there.
Great transition. So Travis Holmes, we're going to ask you this, okay? I'm not going to go ahead and comment on coaches after I got nailed for Napier, so I'm staying out of this one. But do you think Mike Norvell's seat could get a little hotter at this, or do you think he has a little bit more leeway since they went undefeated last year?
He has a lot. Go ahead. Yeah, I think he has a lot more leeway at this current moment in time. I mean, especially with the transition that they're aiming to do. They're trying to solicit other conferences and all of this. Like, because of all the moving pieces there, and the fact that he's coming immediately off, an undefeated season, and you could even argue with the rebuild and everything else, missing his top quarterback. All right, cool. I get it all. It makes sense that he would have at least a year, 2 years, something along those lines. But it is concerning that this wasn't a team that was simply out-recruited, that was simply dominated overall. And they were. These are some issues, don't get me wrong, but they look like a badly coached team. That's the...
Can I comment on that too? I mean, Norvell's got some equity built up, like
Okay.
Travis says. The difference between Napier's looking at his third losing season, or
Right.
and
Yeah, Napier should have already been gone.
right. I mean, so but these stranger things have happened. You're talking about a lot of money. You talk about boosters and that sort of thing. And if the right person is available and wants that job, is interested in that job, then it'll happen. I mean, it's like you look
They
at.
don't need an excuse. We're in what they say, we're a right to work state. They don't need they don't need an excuse to get you out the pain if they want you out the pain.
Exactly. And just like I mentioned before, they'll find somebody to write that check.
Yeah. Okay. All right, let's go to a quick D. Lowe's. Josh's baby Asher already got accepted there. He's 2 for crying out loud. All right. I'm not sure how to really take on that, but I put it up there so I don't have to listen to this guy say that I went out there and say, you ignored me. No, I didn't ignore you. Because actually, Josh's baby Asher's a cute little kid, so he deserves.
I am here for all of you in the chats just blaming FSU. I would go to any Florida school over FSU. I would go to FAU and FIU before I go to FSU. So I'm fully here for it.
Okay.
My school, my high school was a partnership school with the University of Florida, and I still went to UCF. I was like, I'm not doing any of these Tallahassee schools, so I'm here for you.
All right, D. Lowe's, thank you very much for joining us tonight. So with that said, okay, everything is for sale for the right price, no doubt about it, Bo. So Mel, what are your thoughts about the FSU situation? Just let everybody know, after Mel's done, Candy's going to go in for a station break.
Yeah. Obviously, last year, Florida State, they kind of caught fire. They were undefeated, had an undefeated season. Quarterback goes down. They thought they should have had an opportunity to play for the national championship. I think they ended up getting blown out in the bowl game that they were in because their quarterback went down. Now they have a transfer. He's been everywhere. I mean, he didn't win at Clemson. I guess he did an okay job. I don't know what necessarily Oregon State did. I guess they did okay because that guy was able to parlay that job into the Michigan State job. But DJ, you got to be able to run the football. You just can't. His right arm is just not going to get you there. He wasn't very accurate. He was a lot more mobile or a lot more willing to run at Clemson than he seemed to be, yesterday playing. Whether it was because, I don't know if he's trying to just become a better pocket passer and just stay there in the pocket and try to read defenses and be able to deliver the ball. But he's not able to deliver the ball on time. He missed a couple touchdowns. They got to be able to run the football better. That's the biggest thing. The biggest takeaway that I got from that football game is you have got to be able to run the football. Bill O'Brien, Boston College, ran the ball down their throat. This guy here, I think Bill O'Brien is probably one of the luckiest guys in the world. I don't know how great of a coach he is. I'm not really a Bill O'Brien fan, but I mean, he was at New England, parlayed that into the Penn State job, did okay there, then parlayed that into the Houston Texans job, was there for a while, got rid of D-Hop, traded him, traded for Laramie Tunzel, gave away a couple first-round draft picks for him. That franchise just kind of hovered around 500, it seemed. Didn't really, I don't think they necessarily scared anybody. Ended up losing that job, and I think he went to Alabama. Did a good job there, at Alabama as offensive coordinator, and then left there and went to New England again with Mac Jones, and I figured that was a match made in heaven. That was his quarterback, and I figured that they get Mac Jones back on track, and end up, that didn't work out well. Mac Jones ends up getting traded. He's in purgatory now down in Jacksonville. He'll probably never get another opportunity to start. Just ruined the poor guy's career. But I think and then he was going to get fired, obviously, because Belichick left. And man, lands the BC job, his dream job. He couldn't be happier. I guess the Boston faithful aren't, they couldn't be happier. It's like a match made in heaven. Right. And, he kind of, got lucky, I guess. I mean, like Coach said, he just followed what Georgia Tech did, ran the ball down their throat, and was, lucky to come out of there. Well, not lucky, but they came out of there with a W. They soundly beat them without question.
All right, let me add one thing to this because this is really interesting. I mentioned it at the beginning of the segment. I'm going to say it again, okay? The job that Bill O'Brien did behind Jerry Sandusky was a thankless job. He really did. You think about it, okay? Joe Paterno, obviously, they took his statue down. Everything he did, it went all for naught. And Bill O'Brien had to go behind that. that sex scandal. And he brought them back to respectability where James Franklin now is the caretaker of that program. So I'm going to tell you something.
Yeah.
We can say what a lot of people want to say, but I think that's one of Bill O'Brien's best coaching jobs, what he did at Penn State. Now, here's another thing I do want to point out, and that's this, okay? He got the NFL out of his system. He got the head coaching job at Houston, did a good job with it, so now he doesn't have to worry about it going for his next head coaching job. I could probably incorporate this as a topic later, but I want to say a few things while it's fresh on my mind. It's not uncommon for pro coaches to go back to college. Howard Schnellenberger's one that did well with it. And then we talked about Gene Stallings many years ago did well. You know, and you get it out of your system. Even Nick Saban spent a couple of years at the Dolphins, and now he's back. We all know what he is. The list goes on and on. O'Brien got it out of his system. And I'll tell you this, he does really well over at Boston College. They'll put a statue in front of him in front of Boston College if he does a lot of things that most people think that he can do. I said my piece. I didn't have to scream to do it. I could say seriously, but I don't have to do it very loud. Candy, anything you want to add, let alone the station break that follows that?
Well, you bet I do. You
Okay.
bet I do. Okay.
Well, before the station break, if you don't mind,
No.
just because I know
wanna
we're
talk
going to
about
switch
the
subjects.
too.
Okay, cool. Go ahead.
Okay. So there was a player last night that used to play for Florida State, Trayshawn Ward. He had more yards rushing than Florida State did for the whole entire game. Him as a player. He had 61 yards receiving and 77 yards rushing. Florida State for the whole game had a whopping 21 yards rushing. Now, Mel, you know that no one's going to win with that kind of.
You're not going to win many football games doing that.
No. And your third down efficiency was horrendous. 3 for 14. You're not going to win any games doing that either. And then fourth down, 1 for 3. There's no way you're going to win games with that. I'm sorry. I mean, that quarterback, DJ, why you stayed with that quarterback when you played the first game, you lost. Then you play this game, and he was missing bad. And there were receivers out there, and some of them I would say were the receivers' fault because they were dropping like crazy. But maybe you put somebody else in to spark that offense. Why you didn't as a coach. And then on top of it all, you had 7 penalties, whereas Boston College only had 1. Your team's not disciplined. That is by far the coach's problem. And the coach needs to own it. I'm glad I heard that he was, but that is not a good college football team. That was a painful game to watch. I mean, because I love football. I love a good game. That was not a good game.
Well, I only made it to halftime. Let's go back to the chat room quick. Well, you know, Travis, you got to abandon B-Lows anyways. Yeah, so that's why we love Travis. Orlando Escobar, let me give you some good information, my friend. Michigan's performance wasn't as bad as you think because they played a tough Fresno State team that finished 9-4 a year ago. So I'm glad you feel better, but Fresno State is no slouch. And, of course, Bo says I had more yards walking to my truck. Good stuff, Bo. You know, well, if you can't say it on the air, at least he says it in the chat room. That's a team player if I ever saw. Now to the station. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, Travis, did you want to say anything or more or no?
Oh, well, I still wanted to touch on Bill O'Brien because I think guys like Bill O'Brien is like the bar rescue guy. If you've ever seen that show, like they're just the guys who just keep coming to these terrible organizations, terrible places, and just kind of your job is to flip it. You're not going to necessarily make it into this great, 5-star hotel, but you're going to make it into being just get us where we can just float. Like that's his overall job. Like those kind of guys are underrated. Like so, he may not be your guy who's going to bring you championships. He's not the guy who's going to bring you Super Bowls when he was in the NFL, but he is a guy who will get you to being a respectable organization, and there is value in that. Like I don't never want to like dump on that kind of guy, but again, he's just not that guy who he's going to get you to 500 and better. And if you're in the NFL, he's going to get you a 9-10 win season if you're in college, and that's a good situation. He's just not the guy who's going to take you to that next level. That's the next guy, and that's fine. But well, yeah, like Brian Kelly, like that too. That's to Orlando's point, but that's kind of what it looks like. And unfortunately, is back to Florida State and how they beat them using the Georgia Tech game plan is they're kind of coming to that same conclusion that Colorado when Deion Sanders came to last season. Like they're slowly realizing those trenches are what's going to make and break your game versus D-line, O-line, all of that. Like, and if you don't have the dogs, you can have all the speed, all the flash, all the shine you want. You're just gonna be a Ferrari on bricks, like in the hood. Like that, you're a great vehicle that ain't going nowhere. Like that's basically who you are. And that's the unfortunate realization that both of these teams are kind of coming to. Hopefully Deion's in a better position, but we're not talking about that today. But yeah, that was overall like some takeaways after you guys were talking.
Travis, I would also comment that there are some coaches that just work better in college. There are some coaches that work better in the NFL, and there are some coaches that are really good offensive or defensive, but put them as a head coach and they don't do well. So it's also knowing your strengths and as a coach, what your strengths are too.
Well, the only thing I'll say to it is, my God, you can't get a shorter drive than Foxborough over to Boston College for your next job. Seriously, but I tell you what, I have a short drive to go to Candy right now to give us that station break, right, Candy?
Sounds like a plan. Last November, we published a book, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth. It is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Google, and Apple Books. If you see the red subscribe button, click it, like us, share us with all of your peeps. We talk baseball and hockey typically on Mondays, except yesterday when it was a holiday. Tuesday nights, we talk Inside the Pigskin. Wednesday nights, you never know what we're going to be talking about. Scott's talking about a hot dog eating contest. And Thursday nights is Fire Up. You never know what we're going to be talking about on that. If you'd like to listen to podcasts, wherever you get your podcast, you can get us there too. Website, www.southfloridatribune.com. Scott writes, I take pictures. We have all kinds of videos. We're going to have some pictures up. There's videos of the Canes on our YouTube channel. You can also go to our website and get a link to Scott's book, but more importantly, our merchandise store where you can get South Florida Tribune and Motor City Madmouth merchandise. Back to you, Scott.
Thank you, Candy. Well done. Okay. So why would I bother to bring Rich Rodriguez, the former Michigan Wolverines coach, in? Because in this situation, he makes a whole lot of sense and he's funny. He's quoted by Alabama football. They can beat our brains for $2 million. I'll even sing Roll Tide for them if they want. If they pay me $2 million, I'll be down there Saturday and Sunday. I'll play them twice and help our budget. And, when you're a small program, you know what? That guaranteed money comes in handy. In fact, I'll even go a step further, okay? I was over down in Coral Gables yesterday, and Mario Cristobal took FIU to Gainesville, and they lost to the Gators. And he knew that was money that they had to put into the FIU program. So I asked him about that. He says to me, I was just asked that question the other day. Were you over there with us? No, I wasn't. But Cristobal has a nice dry sense of humor. He's really great to work with. But think about it. Okay, let's talk some dollars and cents, Coach. You work for Central Michigan, right? And let's talk about those guarantee games. I mean, hey, if you're going to get $2 million and it puts it in your athletic department, Howard Schnellenberg used to schedule them all the time. And by the way, I do want to make one reference to the Florida thing. Dan Mullen should never have let him go. And Ron Zook, that was a mistake too. Ron Zook's a pretty good coach too. I just remembered that. That's why I incorporated it now. But Howard Schnellenberg, if you're a program builder, you're going to bite the bullet, so to speak, to try to support your athletic program. And that's what Rich Rodriguez has done. He's already coached at the big programs already. So now he is at Jacksonville State, which is located in Alabama, mind you. So I'll take $2 million to get hammered because that money will go a long way towards facilities and everything else. But that said, Coach, take it from there, please.
You hit the nail on the head there, Scott. I mean, it's true. You look at like the MAC. I mean, you're going to play 3 out-of-conference games. One of them is going to be probably a FCS school. And then at Central Michigan, we always, played either a Big 10 or a Big 12 or somebody, two games like that. And you're right. That money doesn't unfortunately doesn't all go to football. It funds the athletic department. I mean, it pays for the women's and men's basketball officials for the whole year. You know, it is you need that. You need those payout games to float your program, because you're not getting as much, you're not getting the TV money that the big conferences get. You're not getting, you're lucky to get average 20,000 per game. So it's not like you're making a lot of revenue on ticket sales or concessions and that sort of thing. So, Rich Rod is just more or less stating the obvious and doing it kind of in a tongue-in-cheek way. Depending on where you are, I mean, look, I'm looking at, like, shoot, if I'm UCF and I got Florida State on the schedule later on in the year, man, look out, because that was one of the things, you always, as a coach, you don't want to concede anything. You want to try to, breed confidence into your kids, into your program. And, we always looked at it as an opportunity to play up and prove people wrong. We may have gotten lucky, but we went down and beat Oklahoma State when they were nationally ranked back in, was it 2016? And, that did a lot for our program, did an awful lot. And, the next year beat Kansas, really had a Syracuse team that took them into overtime. So it kind of depends on your approach to it. At the end of the day, if you approach it the right way, you're still playing with house money, because they're paying you a lot of money to go in there and take your shot to beat them.
Yeah, I'll tell you, when you do get that shot and you capitalize on it, I won't get into details. It's a gratifying feeling. Let's go to Orlando real quickly. As a Michigan fan, Rich Rod's name being brought up makes me this up my mouth a little bit. PTSD, I guess. But you know what? Orlando, I appreciate where you're coming from. I realize that his tenure in Michigan was anything but good. But, let's face the reality. You know what? You see some of these coaches go to a smaller school. And here's another one I want to bring up, too. How about Frank Solich going from Nebraska to the University of Ohio, the Bobcats? And he did a really good job there. And I'll tell you what, for all those Nebraska people that didn't like Solich, I'll tell you, when he went to Ohio and created a name for himself, what has Nebraska done since? Not a whole
I thought he was a good coach.
I think so too. Well, you know what? You think so? Well, go ahead. Why don't you take the segment from here? Let's talk about Rich Rod, and then you can talk about Solich. And then
I thought he was a good coach. I mean, I thought it was an unfortunate thing. I don't think they like the style of play. I think things are kind of changing a little bit. They're getting away from that option game, and that's that's what he did very, very well and very, very effectively. But getting back to what you're talking about, those games really for the bigger schools, it's really a no-win. I mean, you go out there and you blow them out. People talk about you. You go out there and struggle, they're going to talk about you. I've never played an FCF school, so I don't know what that's like. I mean, we might have played a lower tiered Division I school. I mean, back then it was Division I, Division II. FCS would be Division II. We never played a Division II type school. We played a lower tiered, like we might play the Mountain West or something like that. San Diego State, and I think my freshman year we played BYU. Robbie Bosco was there. I think we ended up beating them. Then we come back and play San Diego State and I think our kicker kicked 6 field goals. We couldn't score a touchdown against San Diego State. It didn't look good. And then the next game we played Nebraska, and we got boat raced. We practiced inside of Pauley Pavilion that whole week because we were going to surprise Nebraska. We had a prototypical pocket quarterback, and so we practiced inside Pauley Pavilion. Pauley Pavilion is where they play basketball. So we practiced indoors because we were going to surprise Nebraska, and we're going to come out with our prototypical drop back quarterback and run the option against Nebraska. That didn't go over well. And like I said, it's 45-3. I think we got boat race. So right. those games are tough. And you guys are talking about the Michigan and Fresno State game. I played Fresno State, and they're. I mean, look here. I don't know what they do out there in the Valley. Those are some tough tough folks, man, and they will hit you in the mouth from way back 30 years ago. They'll hit you in the mouth, but those games are obviously important for the smaller schools because they need that revenue. There's no question about it. I mean, that's what like Coach said, it's not just for the football program; it's for the entire athletic department, so that they can, stay in compliance with Title IX. That's why they have to take on those games, and sometimes it's not pretty. And as a football fan, it's not really what I want to see, but I understand it. You turn on the game, you see Alabama. I mean, they did what they're supposed to do, but that's not really entertaining. I mean, the starters might play. They should only play like a half or something like that. I mean, it's just not entertaining football, but I understand why they have to do it, and it's important because every kid deserves, and then for a kid who is thinking, who has aspirations of playing in the NFL, he gets an opportunity to size himself up against some really stiff competition that he would be playing in the NFL. When you're playing a school like Alabama or you're playing Michigan or something like that, you're going to find out real quick whether or not you want to continue on with this, or you just go ahead and hit those books and go pro doing something else.
Yeah, but you know what, Mel? This goes deeper than revenue. How about exposure? Doesn't that mean something?
Yeah, without question. You get an opportunity to, like I said, you get an opportunity to test yourself against the very best.
Yeah, but I don't mean it in that sense. No,
what I mean taking all my points.
About the program, the program.
Well, then I'm not saying nothing. I'm done. But I'm not going in the chat room though. Let's go back to Daniel Berry Sports Highlights. Happy Tuesday. Good. I'm not taking that one out of you. And App State was not pretty. Oh, I'll go there because I'm going to tell you. Years ago, I had a guy who was a prognosticator named Mark Lehrman. I used to hang out with him. He used to pick me up for advice because he knew I was a sports writer. And I told him, "What do you think about that Michigan Appalachian State game? Because that was not on the board." And
you're right. I mean, the exposure for App State in that particular game, I mean, it's giving them exposure, and people still talk about that. Michigan will never be able to live that down, that loss.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you what I told Mark. I said, what I told him, I have a feeling about this game, I have a feeling that App State's going to give a much closer game than most people think. And by the way, I was covering my first FAU game against Middle Tennessee State at Lockhart Stadium. And what do you think? App pulled the upset. No, I'm done. Travis, you know what? I know exactly what I need to do. It's called "Thou shalt keep thy foot on the ground, not thy mouth," and I'll let you go ahead and not steal your thunder. Go ahead.
I mean, you guys have taken all my points. So, but yes, Michigan Appalachian State back in 2007 is the big. That's the one that kind of made the NCAA change everything. Having these little teams versus the small. Like at the time, they were a D1 AA program. Then they became an FCS program later after the fact when they played Michigan again the second time around, like 2014. So like that was the one. And yes, they paid them millions of dollars to play against them, but also they won. Like that's a big thing when you do win. To Coach's point, you want to breathe life into those teams, but at the same time, in Rich's case, in this situation, if Alabama did choose to play against Jackson State, they wouldn't be playing until like 2028. So he's not talking about any of the guys who are currently on, this roster. He's not talking to the guys who are currently in the room, even hearing these comments. So I fully understand it from that perspective, but also they got to make budget. Like that's a real life adult conversation for kids who are making, NIL money. You should understand this is a business and we got to make budget. Cool. We need this money. And then you're also talking about a university who is nationally known in Alabama. You're talking about a university who has all this money, but who also hasn't played an in-state rival outside of Auburn since 1944.
Right.
They don't want to play other teams in the state because they don't want to give them that notoriety. They don't want to give them that recruiting edge. They don't want to put them on TV. And that's the big thing, because then they feel like they're recruiting against you. So for the smaller teams like a Jackson State, no, Rich Rod absolutely wants this, and he should want it. Free recruiting in state. Everybody's going to be there. Yeah. You get paid to do it, and you have no risk. You are truly playing with house money. If you win, awesome. You're Appalachian State. That could ricochet you into another stratosphere of teams. And if you lose, they expected you to lose. Like, what? That's fine. Either way, you're winning because you got $2 to $4 million. So overall, he was smart to answer it in the way that it is because everyone's talking about it. And worst case scenario, he may actually get a game out of this.
Yeah, and we're talking about. So let me give you a little information about the Appalachian State, Michigan. If I recall correctly, and I repeat those words, if I recall correctly, I think U of M gave him like 500,000 at that time to come up there. Okay, but then when they lost, they had to pay him a lot more money because Michigan had to redeem themselves after that loss, and obviously they came away with the win. If you're Michigan, and think about it, the number one all-time winningest program, do you think you want to be in the record books as 0-1 against Appalachian State? No, 1-1 looks a whole lot better than 0-1, and they paid a good penny to get the rematch. That's all I'm going to say about
the NCAA had to change the rules around top 25 to allow a D1 AA team to be in the top 25 because they wanted that bad to put Appalachian State in the top 25 after they beat UM. Like that's how wild that was, man.
Yeah, they did. I remember that. So I don't know if Rich Rod was App State. I think it was Lloyd Carr, if I remember right.
It was Lloyd Carr.
And yet, ironically, Michigan went on to go 9-4, and they beat the University of Florida in the bowl game. So, and Tebow had a big monster game. So there's a little bit of information for you, Orlando. But you guys are all on point here. I mean, let's face the reality. Rich Rodriguez has got us talking about it, so he's at least seen inside the picture because I thought it was an interesting topic to talk about, and you guys are on point with the whole thing. All right, well, you know what? How many of us on here have AARP?
I'm not old enough.
Huh?
I'm not old enough.
Hey, yeah, I'm on my way, man. I'm on my way.
Well, yeah, if you're not there, I know you told me last week what your age was. Do you have AARP, Mel?
Yeah.
What about you, Coach?
They send that to you. You get it in the mail right before your 50th birthday, man.
Like, yeah, no. Well, no, they gave it to me at 47. They wanted my money earlier. They didn't care what the heck I look like. Although I used to go ahead and go to Wendy's to get those senior discounts to get the drinks. So I think it worked. I still think now. What about you, Coach? You on AARP?
I am not.
Okay, well, let me tell you something. The Dallas Cowboys are, because I'll tell you what, they got an AARP bet field that calls of Dalvin Cook and Ezekiel Elliott. So now that we go to the AARP backfield presented by Jerry Jones, Mel, how do you think that these guys are going to fare in Big D? Because they have as much mileage on their tires as I have with my voice, Mel. Boy, look at all these things. When I'm not loud, the one-liners really come free, right, Travis?
I don't believe they believe that Ezekiel Elliott can get him to take him to the promised land. And, Dalvin Cook has a hard time holding on to the football. I mean, wasn't that his problem? He was fumbling the ball. That was his problem. I think he got released last year. Where was he ended up? In Baltimore or something like that. He fumbled to put the ball on the ground a few times, and I think he ended up getting released. I'm not 100% certain.
I think he was with the Jets, wasn't he?
Yeah, it's with the Jets and he got traded.
I thought he was with the Jets, yeah. And after Aaron Rodgers got hurt, it was they just looked real.
I think he got traded to Baltimore. I think he got traded to Baltimore. He got released, got picked up by Baltimore, something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
But anyway, it wasn't pretty either way. Wherever he landed, because he had a hard time holding on to the football. But I believe. They didn't improve obviously there, and that's not going to help. That's not going to help Dak. I mean, when Dak was at his best was when him and Zeke, it was their rookie year when they came in the league and they were running Zeke, when Zeke led the league in rushing. That's when they were at their best. It was complementary football. They don't have these guys are not going to give you complementary football. You just cannot. I mean, I've looked at so many games this weekend and it's just disgusting. I'm looking at Colorado on each one of these games. Like, every one of these teams, the coach's son was playing quarterback and they were trying to highlight that player. That's what I mean by felt like I was looking at Colorado. UCLA, they're throwing the ball all around the lot. You just can't win like that. You look at Florida State, you can't do it. Colorado, I mean, yeah, they end up winning the game, but it's not pretty. They're not going to be able to win football games like that because, again, you're not protecting your defense. It's feast or famine. That's what that is. It's feast or famine. And when Dak is he's not Peyton Manning. He's not Tom Brady. He's at his best when they play complementary football. If he's dropping back 40 times a game, that's not good for you. If he's dropping back 20 to 25 times a game, then you're probably in that game. But anytime you're relying on Dak and his right arm, that's not who he is. That's not who Dak Prescott is. And so, they didn't get better at that position. Now, maybe they're going to use a little running back whose dad is one of the coaches, the guy that came from the little smaller guy. I can't remember where he came from. Kansas State, right? Maybe they'll use him some in the running game. I mean, they should. It's going to be interesting to see. I mean, Jerry he's reminding me a lot right now of Al Davis in his later time, and that wasn't pretty. I think we all can say it wasn't pretty watching Al Davis as he got older and he was still running that football team. It was not pretty.
So, Mel, if I'm understanding you correctly, you're not enthusiastic with the combination of Cook and Elliott, are you?
Not
Yes
at
or
all.
No?
No,
Okay,
not
good
one bit.
enough. Good enough. Okay, let's go to the chat room. Okay, Washington going to surprise the East. Don't be surprised if they take Dallas' spot. I don't know. Okay, we'll put it up there. We'll see what happens. Back to Bo. Colorado still does a runner play defense. It's still the same brand as last year. I love that one. That was good stuff. Okay, ego won't allow him to be any different. Jerry loves the same Jerry. Okay. All right. So with that said, Travis, let's go to a Cook and an Elliott. Do you like it or do you not like it?
I mean, I don't think there's anything to like, honestly. Like, I mean, I would love to. Like, I don't want to defame either one of these men. Like, they may have been great men at one point, but that ain't where we are today. Like, I can just being objective, man. We got Cheeseburger Eddie and Old Yeller. Like, this is not the greatest situation for anybody involved at this current moment in time. You got Brian Schottenheimer as your OC, which is not a great hire, but it's like he's fine. You know what I mean? Like, you got older running backs again who you're just hoping are going to make it through the season. That's not really a good situation. You got this whole team just like duct tape and bandage and stapled together, and you're just hoping to make it through the season so you can blow this thing up. Like, everything, every move, every roster build, every piece of this all kind of says the same thing. We're not trying to win. We're a very unserious franchise at this current season. We are not going to give you any additional money. Figure this out. We're not giving you any guaranteed money. Any cash. Figure this out. And at the end of the season, you're probably all going to be gone. Like, every move is saying that, and it's reinforcing that decision. Unfortunately for Dalvin Cook, for Zeke, it's just a paycheck. Cool. Congratulations there. Like, hey, man, get that money, add to that pension. Congratulations. But overall, that leaves no confidence. Like, you're basically just talking about the backups of, Deuce Vaughn and Rico Dowell, and hoping that these guys are a flash in the pan or something.
Coach?
Man, I really agree with Travis and Mel. The only thing I'd say, I woke up this morning and I saw that, and I was really, really excited. I was hyped up. Like, Dalvin Cook and Ezekiel Elliott in the same backfield. I cannot believe it. How are they going to manage the touches? Who's going to start? And then I looked at my watch and I saw it was 2018, and I got into DeLorean and came back to 2024, and it's not as attractive. It's not as And I think, to Mel's point, yeah, I mean, that's a great point about Jerry. I think Jerry might be kind of, he thinks the longer he stays in the past, that it'll keep him young and keep him from getting old. It doesn't work.
All right, so here I'll give you my summary of what I think here. Okay, then I'm going to give you everybody a fact that they should know this weekend, and we have some more good stuff coming. What I think of this backfield? It's called a PTP. You know what that stands for? Past their prime. Period. Okay, well, that's another P. We'll leave it at that. All right, footnote over the weekend here. Okay, reigning Super Bowl champs. Nobody has to comment. Just a piece of news here. Reigning Super Bowl champs in opening games are 38-18-1. The Kansas City Chiefs host the Baltimore Ravens. And mind you, this is all in the Super Bowl era. All right, so now with that said, we have a new segment. Everybody has a chance to rant, except me, because, I have to keep this voice, because I do a lot of these, and public speaking will be in the domain in 2025. So we're going to start off with the lead ranter, Coach Bono, who made this segment possible with his classic last week. And so we're going to call it, and if we ever need, we're going to call the rant segment the Coach Bono rant segment. I'll have to think of how to incorporate it, but meanwhile, you can start.
I just don't know how this is different from parting shots, but I'm going to go.
Well, because you know what? I'll tell you why it's different than parting shots. Because parting shots is a simple thing where you can just be even keeled, which I've been forced to do tonight and going on. Being a rant means you get to raise that voice up so Candy can do some magical technical stuff.
I know. I just don't. I always want to be authentic, but I guess I would go off. Last week I went off on Florida State. This week it's University of Florida, and I just don't.
But that's why I wanted you to know why, instead of parting shots, we want to be different on this broadcast.
Right.
So we're going to talk rant versus parting shots. And the fact that you went out there and did something that I would do when I had a voice, okay, you just created something and got my wheels turning. I'm done. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Doc.
Well, mine's just kind of the state of the Florida Gators football program. I don't understand how it has gotten to this point. You know, I know from firsthand knowledge that, you know, Billy Napier had gotten everything that he asked for in the first 2 years from the standpoint of budget, coaching salaries, facility renovations, you name it. They doubled the size of their staff. They've got more people working in that building than anybody can count, and they've gone backwards. The program, they just haven't moved the needle. And I just don't, I don't understand how that happens and how it can continue to happen. And then the part two of that is, Florida State. I think they drank a lot of their own Kool-Aid. They're in deep trouble. If Napier, I have no doubt that Norvell will make it to November 30th. But if Napier does, then the loser of that Florida State game should be fired. Period.
I like it. Okay. Next, Mel.
The winning team should have to pay the other coach's buyout.
I was waiting for a final chug, and that was it. All right, Mel, you're up next. Go ahead.
So Sunday we had our little draft for our fantasy football team, and imagine this: the first player drafted was a running back. Believe it or not, the least valued players on the team was the first player that was drafted on my little fantasy football league, and it takes me back. And when we were talking about it last week, and not wanting to pay these guys, so you have a player that you want him to be a 5-tool player, right? You want him to be able to run for power, run for average, pass protection, catch the ball out of the backfield, and lo and behold, be able to hit his head on the goalpost from any place on the field. But you don't want to pay this guy, right? You don't want to pay this guy, but he has to be able to do all those things, right? But you don't want to pay him. And like I said, in the fantasy league, the first player drafted wasn't a quarterback, it wasn't it wasn't a wide receiver, it wasn't a tight end, wasn't a defense, it was a running back. So the running back, they are the horse that pulls the buggy on any franchise. You have got to be able to run the football at any level. If you expect to win, you need to be able to run the football. And you got to pay these guys. We got to start looking at them differently. These guys have got to come together collectively, but they got to strike whatever it is they need to do so that they can get their money, because pretty soon they're going to be getting less money than the kickers. There was a time when the running back was at the top of the food chain. That was not long ago when the running back was at the top of the food chain. Now we're down here scavenging for scraps. That's what we're doing. Scavenging for scraps. Guys getting cut, never seeing a second contract, having to just take whatever they're going to give you just because they want to continue to play football. Man, please stop. This is ridiculous.
I like it. Okay, coming from a running back, I can see why he
Mel didn't left out the part that he had the first pick in his fantasy draft.
No, I didn't. I did not have the first pick. And I would not have picked a running back. And I didn't. I
agree with everything you said, Mel.
There weren't that many running backs left.
That's all right. You know what? I knew from a running back he was going to make sure running back was a feature of this whole thing. All right, Travis, what's your rant?
Running backs got to get the love, man. But there's a gulf between CMC and everybody else, man. That dude is a different type of running back. But yes, so my rant is, I'm tired of these talking heads, man. These national media, these content filler talking heads, man. Where and it's an NFL problem too. I don't want to make it just about the talking heads, but everybody's predicting the offensive rookie of the year. They're predicting the MVPs and they're having all those conversations. And I'm done hearing it, man. I'm done hearing these nonsense conversations where every offensive rookie, of the year nominee or every MVP has to be a quarterback. It's quarterback, and then we might mention a receiver or a running back here or there. And I'm just done hearing it because it's nonsense. Like the NFL, we got to do something. We got to do better. We are in 2024. We don't have to live like we are broke without internet no more. There has to be a better solution to this than having just an offensive. Let's not just have an offensive rookie of the year. Let's have an offensive quarterback of the year, and then just have the award be for everybody else. Let's have the MVP, let's just have the best quarterback, and then just have something for everybody else. Let's have a cap for quarterbacks, and then the remaining team cap for everybody else. And that solves a lot of issues across the league. It solves a lot of issues within our media. It just solves a lot because we know quarterbacks are different. Cool, y'all the golden child. Be the golden child over there. Treat y'all like kickers. Like y'all just do y'all own thing for a second and let everybody else just play as a team, and we can just figure out what this is over here. Like I'm done hearing the nonsense conversations talking about, whether it's Jaden Daniels, whether it's Bo Nix, Caleb, whoever's going to be offensive MVP for Rookie of the Year. And I'm just like rolling my eyes listening to all of the nonsense conversations. Because at the end of the day, so many more guys are so much more valuable. You just happen to play a role. You just happen to be a screwdriver, and we got a boatload of, of hammers. We got everything, all the other tools in the bag over here. And we just talking about you because you just happen to have a flat head. Like, come on, man. Let's be better.
Well, Travis Holmes, let me tell you something. Because of what you just said, I don't watch any more TV during the day because I don't want to be bothered with all this talking business. And by the way, I don't have a rant. You know why? Because I'm going to pick 3 football games and these guys get to pick 1. I got to make up for it someplace. But the reason why I'm picking these 3 football games is they're our best interest. And number 1, Rams at Lions. Matthew Stafford will be returning on Sunday Night Football. But guess what? Mike Kelly and the family won't be returning. I'm not making predictions, but it should be a pretty good game. The Lions and the Rams are becoming a little bit of a rivalry because of Matthew Stafford, Jared Goff situation. Obviously, Matthew Stafford won a few years ago when they played the first time in LA. The one that mattered the most in the playoffs, Jared Goff got round 2. Second one, Texas at Michigan. Great to see 2 of the top programs play in a non-conference game. And number 3, I have to mention this one, Florida A&M at Miami. I'm learning right now that Florida A&M is a much better team than I even realized. So if I were Miami,
good, but they're not good. They're good, but they're not that good. They might hang.
No, I know, but I'm going to tell you one thing, Mel. Working with Mario Cristobal,
they got a new coach at FAMU. I mean, the head coach that was there left to take a position coach at North Carolina or Duke or something like that.
Right.
Become the running back coach. The head coach at FAMU left to take a position job.
Position coach, yeah.
Yeah, I get that. But my point is the fact that Miami won't take this opponent lightly. They don't take any they don't take any game lightly anyways. But the ironic thing about when I was in Gainesville the other day is Florida played a tough non-conference opponent for the first time in many years. The fact that Florida A&M now, we're talking about it, we're not going to take it lightly. I'll just be curious to see how the Canes react to Florida A&M after watching that game in Gainesville.
Their band will win.
Yeah,
yes.
I've heard about the band.
Their band will win. There's no question about that. They'll win the halftime show.
Yeah, well, you're probably right. But the fact is, I'm really curious to see this game on Saturday, and I will. It starts at 6:00 Eastern time, I believe, on the ACC network. So I'll be curious to see what Miami and Florida A&M will look like. But we all know that
I think it's good. I think it's good for FAMU. Again, for the exposure, like you talked about. I think that's great. But other than that, I ain't got much to say about it. I mean, it's a tough game for Miami because if you don't put 100 on them, everybody's complaining.
Number one, they're not
as good.
They're not going to put 100 on them anyway.
Spread's going to be at least 60, I would imagine.
Oh, I'm sure it will. But here's the thing: you're talking about a guy that once upon a time watched Miami crush Savannah State 77-0 many years ago. They're not going to put 100 on them. You know why? Because I'm funny how you bring this up, Mel. I was at the press conference with Coach Cristobal, and I asked him. He said, "This is a much tougher opponent. Don't take it lightly. He's going to go to a second and third string quarterback before they
That's what he's saying in public. That's what he's supposed to say.
Well, I know what he's supposed to say, but I was at the press conference. Were you?
As soon as he went back behind the curtain, he was like, he was back there laughing.
Well,
Like,
he does that to me all the time, so I'm used to it. But the bottom line is yeah, and their second and third string quarterbacks will go out there and see action, anyways. I do expect a 50 to 60 point beatdown, but I'm not taking Florida A&M lightly. And if the fact that they do lose to Florida A&M after beating Florida, oh my goodness,
they'll run him out of town.
oh, I don't even want to hear about it. But I'm not going
they
there.
will run him out of town.
All I'm going to say is I'm a Cade guy, and I'm leaving it at that. But I will be.
But it's a tricky game, man. They just had a big game against Florida, right? Their in-state rival.
Look over them.
And now, now you got this game here. It's one of those, because here's the problem. You're dealing with 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old kids. You don't know where their head's at. Right. I mean, you know where your head is, but you don't know where their head is. And that's the problem.
Well, Mel, I'll give you that. Okay, it is a trap game, as a lot of us say it. So it is a trap game. I'm with you all the way there. But the reality is I'm curious to see how Miami does play against a team, let alone the fact that they've blown out Florida. That's all I'm saying. I'm not trying to sit here and put a numerical number on this thing. We don't know. That's why you play them in the first place. If you don't believe me, look at some of these other upsets that occurred. I'm not going there. I said this wasn't a rant. I'm only talking about 3 games I'm looking forward to. So I want to make sure I set the record straight. The Lions and the Rams, we'll all see it. And then Texas, Michigan, people are looking forward to that one. Florida A&M and Miami. So with that said, we'll start at the top. Coach, are there any game or games that you're looking forward to seeing over the weekend?
I'm looking forward to seeing Michigan and Texas. I think there's question marks about, especially surrounding Michigan with all the transition and everything. And I mean, I make no excuses for it. I'm a Michigan fan. I'm a huge fan of Sharon Moore. I just want to see. It'll be a good early test, a huge early test for Michigan to see where they're at. And, I hope it's a good game. I think it will be. I know Texas will be ready. It's a really important game for them. If they can go, if they can travel to Ann Arbor and win a game against the defending national champion, that'll be huge for Texas. But knowing how Texas is, they'll lose to somebody that they're not supposed to later on in the year anyway. So it won't matter that much, just kind of how they are. But I'm anxious to see, what Michigan, puts out there. I don't think Fresno was a good indicator just because of how they played that game. I think they intentionally played that pretty close to the vest. They didn't really, show a lot in that game. This will be a different outlook, different strategy, different game altogether.
Well, get used to one thing that I had to get used to the other night. We're going to have to get used to on Saturday. USC is in the Big Ten and Texas is in the Southeastern Conference. So we better get used to the fact that both those two teams have changed. But that said, all right, let's go over to Travis Holmes. What game or games are you looking forward to over the weekend?
Well, I mean, it was obviously my Jaguars versus the Miami Dolphins. That's the big one. When they play on Sunday down in Miami, and I'm absolutely looking forward to that. The Jaguars have a lot of questions that need to be answered on defense. The new defensive coordinator Ryan Nielsen, a whole different looking front the defensive line as far as bringing in Eric Armstead, and I'm just kind of curious with Miami's offensive line. I don't even know what to call it. Issues. Best case scenario. I mean, that's the weakness of their team is the offensive line. The strength of the Jaguars defense is their defensive line. It just makes sense to me. That's going to be a real interesting, measuring stick to start the season off. Also, you want to see what the Jaguars offense looks like. It's one of the highest scoring games, for Vegas. It's supposed to be of the week. So I'm expecting some high flying, some high scoring affairs, and looking forward to that. And honestly, I wasn't even thinking about the FAMU versus Miami game, but now that you started talking about it, I'm actually kind of excited about that now. Just because I'm a huge fan of HBCUs whenever they play any of these bigger schools, kind of for all the same reasons we kind of mentioned earlier, talking about the exposure, talking about it's no risk, but also because FAMU has not been bad. Like FAMU has been solid most of the time they play the bigger schools. Like I know it was just USF they played last year, but they lost by 7. They played goodness gracious against South Carolina State last week, and they won. And I'm like, okay, I mean that's not bad. And they have what 28
South Carolina State's an
FBS
HBCU.
transfers right now, huh?
South Carolina State's an HBCU.
South Carolina State.
Yeah, South Carolina State's HBC.
Yeah. South Carolina State.
They're in Orangeburg.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm thinking about the other ones. South Carolina, not South Carolina State. My apologies. Yeah,
Okay,
but
no
they're like every year they play one bigger school, and they'll generally play them close. They don't normally get just blown the doors off of them. And with Miami just beating up on Florida last week, I mean, it's like, all right, cool. I could see them looking over them, and they absolutely have the better athletes. So I that's one of those games where I feel like Florida A&M could at least cover the spread. I don't know if they'll win, but I feel like it'd be worth watching at that point. And I'll feel good about it if they can just make that thing look a little close. So that's kind of just something that's interesting that I probably would watch just for that purpose. And they have a boatload of transfers. They got 28 transfers on their squad this year. So I'm just like, okay, cool. I mean, that might be worth watching, especially if Miami has a down week, after looking forward to the Florida game for so long.
All right, you know what? I want to put Bo's comment in, and then we'll wrap it up with Mel. Candy's going to take over. So go ahead. The first look at the full complement of new pieces in the Seahawks defense and game management of the coaching staff. There you go.
Of course, that's what he's going to say. He's up there in Washington. Of course, that's what he's going to say.
All right. Well, now that everybody spoke their piece, you can go ahead and say what games you're looking forward to.
And of course, I'm going to say, and I've never been really a fan of this team, to be honest with you, because they always give us heartbreak. Come the end of September, you're out of it. You already know you don't have a chance. But I'm looking forward to seeing what the Lions are going to do this weekend. I really am. Right. I mean, I'm rooting for them, actually. I can actually say it and be proud about it, and not have to put a paper bag over my head or anything like that. And because I like the coach, I like I like the GM, I like what they're doing, and I like to see what they're going to do against the Rams, who obviously think that they're probably a pretty good football team. Jared Goff, probably has a little chip on his shoulder of how that thing ended, and I think he wants to obviously upstage Matthew Stafford. And I think that'll be a good game to watch, and it'll give us a good barometer to see, where the Lions are this year. I mean, they came within a stone's throw last year of going to the big dance. So, it's tough. It's really, really, really tough to win football games. It's really, really, really tough to repeat things because you forget how hard you work to get to that point. You got some new pieces. You got some new people there that didn't go through that struggle last year, didn't go through through those pains that they had last year and getting to that division championship game. But it's very, very difficult. So it's going to be interesting to see what their mindset is on the first game of the season and see where they are.
Just 2 days ago, Brian, the head coach of the Lions was stopped talking about the Super Bowl, and the fact that he had to mention that I thought was very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, you got to worry about
reading the headlines.
Yeah, you got to be where your feet are. I mean, you got to worry about the opponent this week. I mean, the Super Bowl. There's a lot of games between now and then, and there's a lot of things that can happen between now and then. You just got to worry about this week.
Yeah, but don't tell that. But don't tell that to General Manager Brad Holmes is out there on social media saying this is a Super Bowl team.
I mean, they were a Super Bowl team last year.
All right, but the point is.
Except for that second half when they came out.
The GM is a different dude than the coach, though. The GM
I know that.
That's the CYA.
He said, "Hey, I put the pieces together. Now you got to go out there and perform."
Well, I know that, but come on, guys. Let me tell you.
That man said, "I built a great roster."
Here's the thing about the NFL is I don't think that there's every year is different. Every team is different. I mean, every team's gonna at least 30% minimum of the roster is going to change, right. And then you have coaching staff changes. The league's about change. You cannot say a team last year was this and they should be this year.
But the thing that the Lions have going for them is they still have their offensive coordinator, and they have to take advantage of it because he's been, his name has been mentioned for a few head coaching jobs. the last couple of years, and he stayed there. And they had to be able to take advantage of this opportunity while they have him, because I don't know who's going to come in and replace him. He's done a very good job with that offense. That offense has been very prolific. So you have to take advantage of that. You know, if anything, they've been kind of deficient on the defensive side of the ball. But offensively, they've done very well.
Yeah, no, what, Mel, you do make a really excellent point. The fact is they were able to maintain their coordinators when they were highly sought after head coaching candidates does make a big deal. It really, really does, let alone the fact that coach everybody.
Yeah, as Philadelphia. I mean, now all of a sudden, Nick Sirianni, he can't coach.
Yeah.
That's right.
No,
that's exactly a great example.
Yeah, those are
last year's Super Bowl. He might be out of the playoffs first round.
They want to get rid of him last. They're talking about getting rid of him last year. I mean, so I mean, if he doesn't do something this year, he's going to be with us here next year.
Yeah,
that's where's Byron Leftwich?
Yeah,
where's Byron Leftwich?
Oh no, I'm with you.
I think he's coaching Pee Wee.
I have no idea. Candy would find that out if anybody. But no, you guys all make valid points. You really do. Mel, you hit a bullseye with the fact the Lions have cohesiveness on the offensive.
You got to take advantage of it right now.
Right. Oh yeah, the window's closing there. And of course everybody makes a valid point. Who cares? I mean, that's what it's all about. That's what we are. We're a crew here. And to put some of this fake business up there that we think we're going to speculate out of this. Our goal here on this show is to educate and give you hard facts. I don't care about predictions of who's winning. That doesn't mean nothing. I don't even care about that stuff. If you want that stuff, there's other ways. But I want the best hard-nosed topics where they stimulate discussion. I think that's what we work really diligently on Inside the Pigskin to provide. And tonight we took it to a different level because we're letting them all rant except me because I don't need to do it no more. I got other guys capable of doing it for me. All right, with that said, Candy, take over.
Take over.
Take over.
So, well, I think we're to the end of the show. I think it's time for everybody to let everybody know how they can get a hold of them. So, Travis, how can people find you?
Well, you can find me on all the socials. Travis D. Holmes, right over here. Yeah. On all the socials. Find my writings covering the Jacksonville Jaguars at bigcatcountry.com. Cover the post game write-ups, press conferences, practice reports, things, just everything. Just save it as your favorites. Come on. We have the Do All Die podcast on Friday. New day of the week on Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. And here, if you're listening to us, obviously wherever you catch your podcast or YouTube or all the different socials, Inside the Pigskin, and that's every Tuesday. Thank you for having me as always, Scott.
You're very welcome, Travis.
And Candy.
Yes. Coach, how can we get a hold of you and find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn. That's the only social media platform that I'm on. You can see me here on Tuesday nights on Inside the Pigskin, and then on Wednesday with Bo Crouch on Coach's Corner. Friday nights, you never know, I might pop up at your local high school football game. And if you see me, please come say hello.
Awesome. Sounds good. And Mel, the star running back, how can we find you?
I just got one question, Travis. You don't have Travis Likes Swine anymore? You don't have that handle anymore?
No, Trav likes bacon. I had to let it go when I got professional.
Okay.
When they gave me the credentials, I had to be a little bit different. So
okay.
Yeah, right.
Well, you can find me on all the social media at Mel Farr Jr. I've always kept it professional. And then you can also follow us on what we have going on here in Atlanta and also up in Michigan at melfarsuperstar.org. melfarsuperstarfoundation.org. Sorry about that.
Which Coach and I will be next year.
Okay. South Florida Tribune published a book, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by your host, Scott the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth. It is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Apple, and Google Books. You can also find a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where you can also find a link to our merchandise store where you can go out and get all kinds of fabulous merchandise. You can also see Scott's writing and my pictures. If you see the red subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner, that means you have not subscribed to us. Please do so and get notified whenever we come on. Monday nights, we talk hockey on Fire Up Florida. We talk baseball on 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. Tuesday nights, Inside the Pigskin. Wednesday nights and Thursday nights, Sports Exchange and Fire Up, respectively. You never know what topic you're going to find on either of those shows. And then Scott throws in Motor City Madmouth show on nofilter.net watch for more details about that show. You can also, wherever you get your podcasts, we're there. If you want to sponsor a show or advertise, call Scott 954-304-4941. If you missed any of that, it's been scrolling along the bottom. Back to you, Scott, to close us out.
All right. Thank you very much, guys. You did an unbelievable job. We appreciate all the participation in the chat room. Even though Bo wasn't on set today, at least he was able to contribute his way. Thank you so much, Bo, Orlando, and Delos for a while. So on behalf of Travis Holmes, Coach Bono, Melfar Jr., and of course Bo next week, well, hopefully he'll be on. My name is Scott Morgan, Rock the Motor City Mad Mouth, though people might call me Mild after tonight, but thank you for joining us on this edition of Inside the Pigskin. See you next Tuesday night. Enjoy opening week, everybody. Bye now.